Hashtag River Lazarus. My retired war dog wouldn't stop staring at the floorboards until I finally tore them up and found a dead veteran's 40-year-old secret. Rain was hammering the rusted houseboat the day I stepped onto that collapsing dock with nowhere left to go but the river. The locals laughed when I paid $10 for the wreck. But my scarred canine partner, Coda, refused to leave one spot on the cabin floor alone. Hidden beneath those rotting boards was something that would pull me into danger and hand me a reason to live again. Type a 1 or a 0 in the comments and tell us where you're watching from tonight. The bus station in Cyprus landing smelled like burnt coffee, wet cardboard, and old rain. I stepped down from the Greyhound with one hand gripping the worn strap of my military backpack and the other resting on the shoulder of the Belgian Malinois beside me. Coda moved stiffly onto the cracked pavement, favoring his front left leg the way he always did when the weather turned cold. The October wind came hard off the river, carrying mud, diesel, and the smell of pine forests rolling back through the Missouri Ozarks. Cypress Landing was the kind of town people forgot existed unless they were born there. One main road, a grain elevator by the water, a church with peeling white paint, old men drinking coffee outside diners, and talking about floods and fishing like it was world politics. Nothing moved fast here. That suited me fine. Fast movement made me nervous now. Loud sounds made me worse. I scratched behind Coda's ears. Still with me, partner? He leaned into my hand. That was answer enough. My name's Wade Carver. I'm 56, and I used to be a Navy SEAL. 3 months earlier, I'd been sleeping behind a warehouse outside Tulsa. Before that, a church shelter in Amarillo. Before that, under an overpass outside Memphis, listening to trucks thunder overhead while Coda slept against my chest like a furnace. And before all of that, a house, a wife, a construction company, a daughter named Hannah who used to wait by the window when I came home. That life felt like something I'd watched happen to another man. War takes pieces nobody can see. Some men lose legs. Some lose sleep. Some lose the ability to sit in a crowded room without studying the exits. I lost the feeling that I belonged anywhere on earth. Coda stopped at the edge of town, ears lifting toward the river. An old marina sagged along the muddy bank beneath a line of cottonwoods, half the docks rotting into the water. At the far end sat a steel houseboat leaning slightly to one side, hull streaked with rust, windows clouded with grime, a faded name barely visible on the stern, River Lazarus. It looked the way I felt, worn down, half-flooded, still floating somehow. Coda started walking straight toward it. Easy, I said. He ignored me. You planning to buy bait or just admire the scenery? An older man sat under the overhang of the marina office, smoking, in denim overalls and a grease-stained canvas jacket. Late 60s, white beard, sharp eyes, the kind of man who noticed things without asking. He glanced at Coda. That dog military? Retired? Thought so. Dogs like that don't walk. They patrol. His name was Roy Calhoun, and he owned what was left of the marina. Out on the dock, Coda had gone completely rigid near the River Lazarus, staring at the cabin with the kind of focus he only got when he sensed danger or death. That boat belonged to an old vet named Walter Briggs, Roy said. River Patrol, Vietnam. Lived on that thing near 40 years before he died last winter. Hart stopped, found him in a chair, facing the water. He lowered his voice. Locals say the boat's cursed. The closer I got, the worse it looked. But I noticed things other people wouldn't. The weld seam still held, the frame stayed level, the steel under the corrosion was thick. Good bones, just buried under damage. Coda stepped onto the deck, lowered his head toward the boards near the cabin door, and let out a low rumble. Not aggression, detection. The same warning he used overseas before explosives, before ambushes, before death. Roy noticed. That normal? It wasn't. Coda moved to a rusted hatch near the rear wall and sat beside it, watching, waiting like someone was standing beneath the floor. Roy cleared his throat. Truth is, I need that boat gone before the winter floods tear my dock apart. Nobody's buying a floating coffin. He looked at me carefully. You got $10? You give me 10, the boat's yours. Figure maybe an old seal and an old war dog deserve someplace dry to sleep. I had $14 left in the world. I handed him a 10. Lightning flashed over the river, and for a brief moment, the whole marina glowed silver, while Coda kept staring down at the floor like he already knew what was waiting there. That first night, the storm rolled in hard. Metallic thuds echoed through the hull, and for half a second the river disappeared and I was back in Kandahar. Dust, smoke, gunfire ricocheting through alleys, somebody screaming over comms for extraction coordinates that no longer mattered. Then Coda pressed against my leg, and the marina came back. He always knew how to pull me out of it. Sometime after midnight came 3 soft metallic taps from beneath the floorboards. Asterisk knock. 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 Asterisk Coda rose instantly and moved toward the hatch with that low, controlled intensity he used clearing rooms overseas. I grabbed a pipe wrench off the counter, crouched, pressed my ear to the warped board, and the whole boat lurched sideways against the dock. Just the storm surge slamming the hull against the pilings. I let out a long breath, but Coda wouldn't relax. He stayed planted over that hatch all night, and I barely slept. By morning, Roy was waiting with coffee and storm damage to inspect. I told him about the knocking. He shrugged it off. Loose pipes, river shifting, hull flexing. But I'd spent too many years learning the difference between random noise and deliberate sound. An hour later, I had a portable pump running. The intake hose lowered through the hatch into the bilge. Dark, foul water surged up out of it for a long time. As the boat rose, I crouched with a flashlight and looked down into a cramped steel compartment lined with old pipes. And near the back, partly submerged, something wooden and rectangular. A platform. Boards raised above the hull floor, built deliberately. Something had been stored down there. Something somebody wanted protected from water. That's when heavy footsteps came down the dock. Not Roy. A tall, broad man in a camo jacket stepped into the doorway, mid-40s, thick beard, hard eyes, smelling of cigarettes and cheap whiskey. His gaze locked onto the open hatch, then onto me. "You buy this boat?" "Yesterday." He smiled without an ounce of warmth. "Funny. I tried buying it after Walter Briggs died." Coda's lip curled. Roy's voice came tight from behind him. "Morning, Dale." Dale Hutchins kept staring at the hidden compartment. Walter didn't trust banks. "Use cash. Silver, too. Old river rats get funny ideas about hiding things." Then he backed off down the dock toward a battered pickup. Roy watched him go. That man's trouble. Used to run smuggling out of Louisiana. Now he hangs around looking for easy money. Looks like he found a reason to get interested. By late afternoon, the water had dropped enough to climb in. I lowered myself through the hatch. On the platform sat an old military storage trunk, about 4 feet long, plus sealed cylindrical tubes, ammo cans, waterproof containers, all wrapped in oilcloth. I peeled back a corner, and the flashlight caught faded stenciled letters. U.S. Navy, 1969. Inside the trunk, journals wrapped in yellowed cloth, bundles of cash, so old the rubber bands cracked apart, silver coins in canvas bags, dog tags, medals, and a folded American flag. The top journal was leather, water-stained, embossed faintly. Walter Briggs. Coda barked sharply from above. A dark green Ford rolled slowly past the marina, slowing just enough for me to see Dale Hutchins behind the wheel, watching. That night, I lit a kerosene lantern and opened the first journal. The handwriting was neat. Asterisk January 14th, 1980. The river froze along the north bank this morning. Skipper refused to leave the deck until sunrise. Smart dog. Smarter than most people I've known. Asterisk. Skipper. A dog. Coda lifted his head as if he'd heard the name too. The entries described life on the river after Vietnam. Sleepless nights, crowded rooms that felt dangerous, panic triggered by fireworks and helicopter sounds. Every line landed harder than the last because they were familiar. Walter Briggs wrote about war the same way. I carried it inside myself, quietly, like something too heavy to explain. Then Coda stood, alert, and moved silently toward the door. I killed the lantern. Footsteps creaked across the dock. A metallic scrape sounded near the stern, somebody testing the chains. Coda exploded into a furious bark, and the footsteps fled. Outside, only fog remained drifting over the river. But the dock chain near the stern had been partially cut. fresh silver marks gleaming in the moonlight. Somebody tried to turn my boat loose and sent it drifting downstream. The next day, the diner gave me a name and a face for the town. Ruth Callahan ran the place near the riverfront. Mid-50s, silver hair, kind, tired eyes. She poured my coffee before I asked, "You Roy's veteran?" "First week's free." Her son had served Marines in Fallujah. "Dogs brought his unit home more than once," she said, and touched Coda's head gently. He let her. High praise. When I asked what Dale Hutchins wanted with Walter's boat, Ruth lowered her voice. "Because Walter used to help people around here. The kind of help proud men don't talk about. Mortgage payments showing up after floods. Vet bills paid anonymous. Groceries left on porches after layoffs. He helped more folks than most churches." She wiped her hands. "Men like him don't tell anybody." Then, quieter, "Neither do men like you." That line followed me back to the marina, where I found the cabin door cracked an inch. I'd latched it. Inside, nothing was stolen. The silver, the cash, the metals all sat untouched. But the hidden compartment stood fully open. One of the storage tubes loosened, and a journal lay open on the bunk where I hadn't left it. Whoever came aboard wasn't after random valuables. They were searching for something specific. I twisted that tube the rest of the way open. Inside was a bundle of sealed letters tied with faded blue ribbon. Old, yellowed, addressed in careful handwriting. Asterisk Mrs. Helen Sawyer. Daniel Pierce. Anna Morales. Asterisk dozens of names. Most never mailed. The top envelope was postmarked 1983. Inside, 3 crisp $100 bills and a letter in Walter's hand. Asterisk Mrs. Sawyer. "I don't know if this money fixes anything. I know it doesn't bring your boy home. But Tommy saved my life twice on the river and once during the ambush outside Cano. I owed him more than this. Please don't try finding out who sent it. Some debts are easier carried quietly." Asterisk. Letter after letter, the same thing. Apologies, memories, cash never delivered. 1 simply read, "I still hear the helicopters every night." 2. I understood that one perfectly. Down in the last journal, the one with no date, a single line was written on the cover. "For the man who finds this boat after me." It read like a message left for someone exactly like me. One passage said it plain. Asterisk, "If somebody comes for what's hidden here, trust the dog first. Dogs know what kind of souls men carry long before people do." Asterisk. The night they came for it, they started with a fire. Coda woke me with a low growl, and the smell of smoke followed. The storage shack near the fuel drums had gone up fast. Too fast. Accelerant. 2 shadows ran along the shoreline. One carried bolt cutters. Dale Hutchins. The fire was a distraction. Coda sprinted toward the stern despite his bad leg, and slammed into a man kneeling at the mooring chains, knocking the bolt cutters into the river. Then Dale stepped out of the smoke with a steel pipe and swung. It caught Coda across the ribs with a sickening thud, and the dog yelped and collapsed across the wet dock. Something in me went cold and old at once. Combat instinct flooded back before conscience could catch up. I caught the second swing, drove my shoulder into Dale's chest, and put him down hard against the railing. The other man ran. Dale spat blood, glaring at me. "Cole Mercer stole it," he started, then caught himself. "Walter stole it." Then he vanished into the dark before the fire trucks arrived. But none of that mattered because Coda was lying near the stern chain, breathing wrong, wet, shallow, hurt. I lifted him into my arms. He trembled, but never struggled. Trust like that only comes from years beside one man. Roy drove us through rain-dark highways an hour east to a 24-hour vet clinic up near the ridges. Coda wrapped in Roy's old canvas jacket across my lap. "You stay with me," I kept whispering. "You already brought me home once. Don't quit on me now." The clinic smelled like antiseptic and burnt coffee. I sat in a plastic chair with my hands locked together, trembling, not from cold, from helplessness, which is worse than combat. In war, there's always something to do. Helplessness comes afterward. Near dawn, the vet came out, peeling off gloves. Mid-30s, exhausted. He's stable. 2 cracked ribs, one shifted near the lung. Bruising around old scar tissue. Another hard hit could have killed him. She studied me. "You military?" Figured. Dogs like him come from one of 2 places, ranches, or war. Coda lifted his head when I came into the recovery room and pushed his muzzle into my hand, still checking that his humans survived too. That nearly broke me. Ruth showed up that morning with a thermos. No pity, just presence. "My son had a shepherd over there," she said. "After Tyler died, that dog waited by our porch 6 months. Animals understand loyalty better than people do." When I muttered that I should have seen Dale coming, she just said, "You're not responsible for what ugly men choose to do. That dog got hurt protecting you. He thinks you're worth protecting." That was the problem. Part of me had stopped believing I was. Coda stayed 3 more days, then came home. I threw myself into rebuilding the boat, patching the hull with steel plates Roy helped weld, replacing rotten deck boards with salvage cedar, rewiring the cabin under Coda's supervision. Routine helped. It always had. And as the boat changed, so did I, slowly, the way Real healing actually looks. Small, quiet decisions, repeated every day. There was one storage tube I hadn't fully examined. Inside it, a folded property deed, a sealed envelope, and an old leather dog collar with tarnished brass. Stamped into the leather, Skipper, USN K9. Coda sniffed it once and froze completely. The preserved scent of another working dog, buried deep in old leather and time. From the very first night, that's what he'd been reacting to. Another military dog had once lived inside this story. The letter inside read, "Asterisk if you found this. The dog chose you before the river did. Men like us drift towards certain places for reasons we don't understand until later." If you're reading this, you're probably carrying the same things I carried home for Vietnam. Noise in your head. Faces that won't leave. This boat saved my life. Not because it floated, but because it gave me somewhere small enough to survive inside until I learned how to belong to the world again. The money beneath this floor was never treasure. It was insurance for widows, for veterans, for anybody drowning quietly while the world looked away. Asterisk. Asterisk, but there's one more thing. Beneath the false panel at the back, you'll find a deed to 12 acres upriver. Small cabins, an old boat shed. I bought the land because broken soldiers need places where nobody asks too many questions. If the dog still trusts you, you're probably better than you think you are. Take care of the river. Take care of the dog. And for God's sake, take care of yourself too. Walter Briggs, asterisk. Walter hadn't hidden wealth. He built a refuge meant to outlive him. A few nights later, I sat at the cabin table for almost an hour staring at a cheap prepaid phone. I hate phone calls, too many deployment calls, too many casualty notifications, too many awkward conversations after wars nobody knows how to talk about. But Coda lifted his head from beside the stove and watched me steady. Stay. I dialed the number I still knew by heart after 3 years of silence. "Hello." My daughter's voice. Older now, careful. "Hey, Hannah." A long silence. Then, Dad. The word hit like a physical blow. "Are you okay?" Not anger. Concern after everything. "I'm trying," I said. And for once I just told her the truth. Missouri, a river, a houseboat, a dog who got hurt, a marina I was rebuilding. I told her I knew I disappeared, and that sorry doesn't fix it. "No," she said quietly. "It doesn't. But then, you sound different, though." We talked nearly an hour. Careful, awkward, but alive. When I hung up, Coda rested his graying muzzle across my knee, and for the first time in years my eyes stung. After so much running, I'd finally stopped long enough for another human being to find me again. Winter passed slow along the current river, the kind of slow that heals things. By spring the town stopped calling it the curse boat. They called it Carver's Place. I rebuilt the 12 acres upriver with help from Roy and half of Cypress Landing. Fishermen donated lumber. Ruth brought chili every Saturday. People wanted the place to exist, maybe because every small town carries veterans nobody knows how to help. Down by the riverbank on that land, Coda led me to a weathered post with a brass plaque half hidden under moss. Asterisk Skipper. Good dog. Good Marine. 1968. 1982. Asterisk the old River Patrol dog was buried right there. Coda sniffed the frozen ground, then sat, still and silent, the way soldiers stand a grave. That's when I understood why he'd trusted this place before any human did. Dogs recognize loyalty, even long after death. I fixed up the first cabin and hung a hand-painted board above the door. No questions you don't want answered. Veterans started arriving quietly. A divorced Army medic sleeping in his truck. A Marine mechanic chased by nightmares. A guard crew chief whose drinking nearly cost him everything. I never asked for details. I handed them keys, showed them where the coffee was, showed them the river. And they all noticed Coda first. Men who refused therapy somehow ended up talking to that old dog beside the fire at midnight. Animals make honesty easier. One spring Saturday, a silver SUV rolled into the marina lot. Hannah stepped out, older, more like her mother around the eyes. Then the passenger door opened, and a small boy with messy brown hair jumped down, carrying a toy fishing pole bigger than he was. Caleb, my grandson, 8 years old now. He spotted Coda and sprinted straight for him. The old Malinois rose slowly, sniffed him once, and leaned gently against the boy. He likes you, I managed. I think he's protecting you, Caleb said. I swallowed hard. Yeah, he's been doing that a long time. That evening, we all drove up to the sanctuary cabins. Caleb threw sticks for Coda through the tall grass while the sun spilled gold across the current river, and a few veterans sat quiet around the fire. Hannah slipped her hand through my arm. You seem peaceful here, she said. There was no anger left in her voice. Not completely healed, either, but healing. Real healing. After dark, once everyone slept, I opened the hidden compartment one last time and added 3 things beside Walter's journals. Coda's worn combat collar from Afghanistan, one of Walter's silver dollars, and a sealed envelope. On the front I wrote, for the next man who thinks he's too broken to come home. Then I closed the steel hatch, and it settled into place with a soft click. Coda limped over and laid down beside the stove. Older now, gray spreading around his muzzle, tired but still here. I sat beside him while fog rolled across the river outside and looked around the warm little cabin glowing against the dark Missouri night. After all those years of drifting through war and loss and silence, I finally understood something simple and true. The old houseboat hadn't saved one broken veteran. It had saved 2. If you believe some people and some dogs come into our lives for a reason, type yes down in the comments. And if you've ever had to rebuild yourself after life knocked you flat, I'd love to hear where you're watching from tonight. Subscribe if stories about loyalty, second chances, and good people finding their way home still mean something to you.